The courtroom smelled of old wood and freshly brewed coffee, a paradox of tradition and urgency. The murals of Lady Justice loomed high above the judge's bench, blindfolded and indifferent. Yet, in 2023, in a small town courthouse in Franklin County, Mississippi, her blindfold seemed to slip. Malik Johnson stood as the defendant, 27 years old, college-educated, African-American, and charged with assaulting a police officer. His public defender, Lisa Fernandez, whispered final instructions in his ear before the trial began. "Just tell the truth. That's all we've got." But Malik knew truth had little weight in a system where narratives were bent by bias. 3 months earlier, Malik had been pulled over by Officer Brad Whitman. The dashboard cam showed Malik asking why he was being stopped. He reached for his registration. The officer claimed Malik made a sudden movement. Moments later, Malik was face down on the pavement, bruises blooming along his temple. Witness videos uploaded to social media painted a picture of excessive force. The local black community rallied, yet the county prosecutor, a white man named Thomas Vance, charged Malik with resisting arrest and felony assault. Lisa filed a motion to dismiss the case, citing lack of probable cause and police misconduct. The motion was denied. Jury selection became the trial's first battleground. Franklin County's population was 42% black, yet only one black juror remained after Vance used 5 of his peremptory challenges to strike potential black jurors. Lisa objected. "Your Honor, the prosecution strikes show a clear pattern of racial exclusion." Judge Harold E. McMillan, a 72-year-old Southern Democrat, denied the Batson challenge. "The state has provided race-neutral reasons." Lisa noted the justifications were thin, uncomfortable body language, hostile demeanor, inattentiveness, none supported by the record. She appealed. Denied. Malik's fate would rest in the hands of 11 white jurors and one elderly black man named Walter Green, a retired postal worker with a quiet air of resolve. The prosecution leaned heavily on Officer Whitman's testimony. He told the jury Malik was aggressive, uncooperative, and hostile. Lisa played the body cam footage. "Why am I being stopped?" Malik's voice was calm. "Don't reach!" Whitman shouted as Malik moved toward the glove compartment. The footage showed Whitman pulling Malik out of the car and slamming him to the ground. Whitman claimed Malik struck him during the struggle. The footage was grainy. No punch was visible. Lisa called Dr. Cameron Morris, a forensic pathologist. She explained Malik's injuries were consistent with blunt force trauma from the officer's actions, not a brawl. The prosecution countered with Officer Whitman's medical report: a bruised rib, possibly caused during the scuffle. No x-rays were taken. On the third day, Lisa brought in an expert witness, Professor Devin Hughes, a criminologist specializing in racial bias in policing. Suschemts, studies show that black men are disproportionately perceived as threats by law enforcement, he testified. This perception influences both arrests and the use of force. Vance objected. "This is irrelevant to the facts of this case." Judge McMillan instructed the jury to disregard sociological generalizations. Lisa felt the jury recoil. Professor Hughes' words, though true, seemed to vanish in the air. Closing arguments arrived like a storm. "This is simple," Vance said. "You saw the video. The officer feared for his life. Mr. Johnson had choices. He made the wrong ones." Lisa stood. "You also saw the video. Mr. Johnson complied. He was calm. He was hurt, Officer Whitman used excessive force, and now the state wants to blame the victim. She paused. The justice is supposed to be blind. But if you see Malik through the lens of fear, of stereotype, of centuries of bias, then justice will not be blind. It will be complicit. Deliberations took 2 days. On the evening of the second day, the jury returned. The foreman, a white woman in her 50s, read the verdict. Count 1. Assault of a police officer. Guilty. Count 2. Resisting arrest. Guilty. Gasps echoed. Malik stared straight ahead. Lisa's hand gripped his shoulder. Judge McMillan scheduled sentencing for the following month. After the trial, Walter Green sat alone outside the courthouse. A reporter approached. You were the only juror who hesitated. Walter nodded. Didn't seem right. But the others, they saw a black man and a cop. That was enough. Public outcry followed. Civil rights groups filed appeals. New evidence surfaced. A longer cell phone video from a bystander showing the entire incident. No assault, no resistance. The footage went viral. Under pressure, the appellate court vacated the conviction. Malik was released after 8 months in prison. He filed a civil lawsuit. Officer Whitman was placed on administrative leave, later quietly transferred. 2 years later, Malik published a memoir, Blind Justice, My Trial in Black and White. It opened with a simple line. In America, the truth isn't always enough when your skin is the evidence. The book sparked national conversation. Malik was interviewed on talk shows, profiled in The Atlantic and The New Yorker, and invited to speak at universities. He spoke not just of his case, but of the quiet rot in the justice system that chewed through dignity and spat out shame. Lisa, meanwhile, took a leave of absence. The case had shaken her deeply. She moved to Atlanta for a fellowship at a legal advocacy group focused on wrongful convictions. There, she worked with other attorneys challenging systemic bias. In the fall of 2026, Malik testified before a congressional hearing on racial injustice in policing. He sat beside scholars, lawyers, and grieving parents. His voice was steady, measured. I survived, he said, but many don't. I was lucky enough to be educated, to have allies, to have a platform. But justice shouldn't depend on luck. Senator Maria Ortega introduced the Racial Equity in Law Enforcement Accountability Act that same year. It struggled to gain traction, but ignited debate. Back in Franklin County, the courthouse had a new judge, a younger black woman named Celeste Marshall. Under her tenure, jury selection processes were scrutinized more thoroughly, and implicit bias training became mandatory for all court personnel. Walter Green, now in his late 70s, began volunteering at a local youth center. He often read aloud from Malik's memoir to high school students. Don't wait until you're on a jury to think about justice, he told them. Start now. Start every day. Malik established the Johnson Justice Initiative, a non-profit offering legal aid and public education to communities disproportionately targeted by the criminal justice system. With Lisa as one of its board members, the initiative took on over 100 cases in its first year. Everywhere he went, Malik carried with him the memory of a courtroom with peeling paint, a blindfolded mural, and a silent battle for truth. 10 years later, the courthouse in Franklin County was renovated. A new mural replaced the old. It depicted Lady Justice still blindfolded, but surrounded by faces of all colors, hands lifted not in chains, but in truth, and beneath it, etched in stone, justice sees not color but character. Let us live by it. In 2035, the Johnson Justice Initiative had grown into a nationwide movement. Offices opened in 7 states. Lisa returned to Mississippi, where she led a legal challenge against a controversial habitual offender law disproportionately applied to black defendants. One of her clients, Jerome Taylor, had been sentenced to life without parole for stealing a laptop. His third non-violent offense. Lisa's team gathered statistical data showing racial disparities in sentencing and argued the law violated the 8th Amendment. Malik testified in the hearing. We say laws are neutral, but in application, they are anything but. The law must be more than words. It must be fair. The Mississippi Supreme Court struck down the application of the law in Jerome's case and remanded others for review. Lisa's victory set a precedent. In a new trial in Kansas, a young black woman named Alana Brooks was charged with assaulting an officer during a protest. Her case echoed Malik's. The Johnson Justice Initiative stepped in. Lisa sat at the defense table. Malik sat in the back row, watching. The officer claimed Alana had incited violence. Video evidence told another story. She was shielding a child from tear gas. Lisa's voice was stronger now. Practiced, resilient. We have seen this pattern before, and we will not let it continue. The jury returned a verdict of not guilty. Tears streamed down Alana's face. Malik and Lisa embraced. Justice, this time, had listened. Years from now, someone will read Malik's memoir in a civics class. A teacher will ask what justice means. And a student will raise their hand and say, it means seeing people fully and fighting when others won't.